Well, if I said, I told you so, is it really saying I told you so if the writing's been on the wall for years? And that's a subject we need to get into here today. If you're even slightly following what's going on in gaming right now, you're probably talking about one of two different things, right? Probably either Sony layoffs, right? Which we're seeming to kind of treat as an isolated incident, which, I would argue is not an isolated incident, but, due to the demographics that are talking on YouTube and things of that nature, we're seeing a lot of content there. But what's another topic you are definitely apprised of at this point in time? Well, that would be the Yuzu emulator crackdown, right? So we have, of course, if you're even moderately following this, what's going on. There's a Switch emulator that's being taken to task over the different methodologies and technologies that they employed to produce their emulator, right? And we would expect this. Of course, I've been saying it. And I actually had some audio recorded months ago, which hinted at and in some ways got right to the point. And I'm just going to do that here. We're going to keep that really short today. Again, like and subscribe if you like the content. If it's not for you, say so, and we'll handle that. But anyway, what's basically going on here is bigger than I think 99% of what I've been seeing online so far. I've seen one very kind of tangential pass at the bigger issue here, and it was very brief, and that was the Digital Foundry. Kudos to them for even broaching the subject, right? One very brief pass at, hey, this is a bigger deal, and then, immediately moved on to talking about other stuff. And I could see why you might be motivated to kind of make a move like that, right? It's all these things, right? All of your power content creators. And, I'm kind of guilty of this at times myself, but where the majority of their people get the news, right? If you follow the Pareto principle, right, the 80-20 rule, I would say, 80% of your people that are interested in even following this stuff get their information from 20% of who's actually out there, right? And that could be by design. I'm sure it is, right? We throttle these things. I have a wide variety of Nintendo Switch, Switch 2, quote unquote, predictions, and a lot of deep dives that got throttled. I mean, locked down instantly. I mean, virtually no views whatsoever, right? Immediately. And, I thought at the time, well, it's a fledgling channel and I can't really expect much, but I think there's more to it than that. And again, even getting to this topic right now, where we are, the processing that goes on, we will see. Will this even reach a reasonable audience? We'll find out. But my message here is this Yuzu emulator crackdown that's going on right now is a way bigger deal than we've been led to believe. And without going too deep into the weeds here, if anybody's already viewed my rise of retro gaming, the dark side of the rise of retro gaming, or things that essentially touch on the fact that, hey, the retro scene is blowing up, and we can't honestly say that we're the only ones that are aware. Is it realistic to think that we're the only ones that know that, wow, retro is making a comeback, and here are all these different ways to preserve your collection, and everybody, in the scene, quote unquote, is doing these mods to their system, and all these ROM hacks are available, and no, right? Clearly, that's not what's happening. So let's dig into that now and keep it brief. Yuzu emulator. What's actually going on in the Retro Renovo news cycle? What does this actually mean? We know what we're being told by everybody else, but how is this take different than what you're hearing right now, and what should get your attention for the next couple minutes here? Briefly, it's the idea of a new precedent being set. What do I mean by that? Well, it's kind of self-explanatory, but we're in a new age now. And I don't believe the concept of emulation and digital rights in that context have been revisited since the 90s. There was something to do with back in the day. I don't know, I could be getting this wrong. This is all off the cuff here and unscripted, but emulation was deemed as legal and everything was kind of put to rest in the mid to late 90s. Now, just like I predicted, it's being brought back. And what the audio I recorded months ago and never released got at, and what the point is, and the concern was that the next step that's required, right? We're on this big push to digital. I'm not going to go into all that stuff again. Watch my earlier videos and then watch this one. It's all laid out pretty clearly. Where we're at now, right, is on the upward swing. We're getting towards total digital, but to get towards total digital, we need to take down any dissenting opinions, right? And what's the biggest dissenter in terms of the all digital landscape? Well, it's folks like the retro gaming community, right? If you're watching this, it's probably you. You have been qualified, quantified, and tallied up as an opponent or a dissident. And so how to curb dissidence? Well, you make an example, right? You punish one, and that warns 100. So, right, the punishment of one is warning 100. And so Nintendo has a history of doing this, but I would say this is the bigger one because a lot of these, Dolphin, I guess, was a somewhat recent example, and fresh off the press right now, March 4th here around 5 Eastern time, I'm hearing reports that Citra is now offline. Okay, so this is, again, news that's maybe 20, 30 minutes old. Some people are saying, well, it's kind of still available, but yeah, by and large, it's unavailable. So now we're talking about Citra, right? So I'm not going to get into all this stuff, but what does this actually mean, right? And what do you take away from this? The push to digital, which I've hit on in many videos and what everybody now is tracking. I mean, everybody, the digital push is inevitable, right? Like clockwork. These power content creators, they talk out of both sides of their mouths. It's comical to watch. And here we are. And here's the inflection point. Because their own communities are now being held to task, right? Your 500, 600, 700,000 subscriber retro gaming power content creators now, they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth, and it's literally comical to watch because they don't dare touch on what you're about to hear today. And what is that? Well, it's this, right? The push to digital needs to quash its dissent and to make the final penultimate push to digital the only way forward, right? The only way is the digital stores and all this stuff. And we need to do away with everything else, all these old scraps, these old dusty, collections of ROMs and stuff out on the internet and all these different emulators. We need to put that to bed and in as few major sweeps as we can. And what is a prerequisite to sweeping the internet and just quashing all of this dissenting opinion? It's to make examples, set precedent, and take action. They've made examples. They're about to set precedent. And we'll get into, maybe I'll spend 3 minutes max talking about what that means. And then taking action. So we've already seen Dolphin. Dolphin was made an example. Wow, okay, you could argue that certain things that they did shouldn't have happened and they made themselves an easy target. Now you have Yuzu, same thing. People saying, wow, they did all this stuff and they pocketed all this money and they had Patreon behind them and wow, they really made it easy for Nintendo to just target them and it wasn't like finding a needle in a haystack. They stuck out like a sore thumb and they're going to get pushed down. Like the hammer seeks the nail. Boom, easy to find. We're going to whack them down. No, this is bigger. And exactly what's going on here is I think they're going to target this Yuzu emulator and they're going to go to trial. Now, I would imagine that your average person is going to avoid, right, going through the legal proceedings. If there's any methodology at all available to you and you have, your good defense or whatever is going on with your case here, and I'm not a legal expert, right? So let's take this with a grain of salt, I guess. But my opinion is in life so far that, that's kind of arguably the last thing you'd ever want to do for anybody because it opens up the door for all kinds of stuff that you could never predict. But in this instance, I would imagine it's very predictable. Now, I don't know if Yuzu would be part and parcel to the problem itself. Why would they voluntarily do this? Maybe there's just so much money at stake that they feel that they have to, and Nintendo targeted them specifically. Everybody's like, well, why would they target Yuzu? I guess it's because they made money. Yeah, because that would then force them to come to trial. It's not necessarily that they made money. This is like chump change, right? We're talking about, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's insignificant. I mean, money at this point is insignificant. It doesn't even matter. It's all fake, right? We won't get into that, but yeah, at this point now, Nintendo's selecting Yuzu to come to trial and to come to stand with what's going on is very targeted. And so what will happen in my crystal ball here is that you will have a resurrection of the legal standings that went down in the mid to late 90s, where they discussed basically the feasibility of emulation and what was legal and what was not, and all this stuff, and they're going to resurrect all of that, and they're going to redefine it in the post 2020 world, right? So basically, what's on trial now isn't Yuzu. It's everyone on YouTube right now. There are hundreds of thousands of subscribers that are targeting this, let's say, pathway in their hobby, and they're targeting that, and they're quantifying that, and that can come out in discovery, because we've already heard of, well, so many millions, or 1 million copies of Tears of the Kingdom was downloaded, or Breath of the Wild was downloaded, and another 1 million was attempted but didn't work. Wow, do you think they stopped there? Just ask, do you think they really stopped there with that analysis? Right? And the answer clearly is no. So you have now one of the big three now seeking a platform to show their discovery. And this is going to be, there is no way that it's not. This is going to be used in all of the videos I've made in the past that got at this topic directly. Here is your segue. Here's your icebreaker. This is the icebreaker moment for the full and final push to digital and the end of the emulation preservation landscape that we've had currently. All these, hey, here's all this new mod and this new ROM hack, and go here, go there, get your ROMs, put them on an SD card. Guess what, folks? It's over. It's over, and the beginning of the end has officially started. This is the beginning of the end, but again, it's the beginning of the end. This will reach a conclusion, and there's no way that it won't encompass all of the thoughts and the concerns and the quantified, qualified metrics that they've been using, they being the big three. This isn't just Nintendo on a whim here. They're all working together. And this isn't like a news bulletin here. Of course they are, right? They all talk to each other. They're all pulling out of physical together. Do you think that's an accident? Do you think they're all backing out of physical media together on accident? You could say, oh, no, Switch, they're going to have cartridges and blah, 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 blah. And, SD cards are getting better because they write faster now. Please, spare me. Digital is going to be the only way forward to ensure total traceability and transparency. All right, so nobody pulls a file down without the creators knowing who's doing it or attempting to do it. And likely it won't even be possible even before that begins to happen, because the ISP will be equipped to stop it, right? That's where this all goes. Total transparency, total traceability, your actions online. This is the beginning step. It's going to become cemented by 2030 for a variety of reasons I'm not going to get into here. But, if you've been awake for the last 4 years, you'll know what's coming. Right now, this is the precursor. Yuzu being targeted to bring all of this emulation stuff to trial, to bring it out into the forefront, right? All of this will be laid out on the table. Here's our evidence, right? Here's the evidence. Here's how many thousands of people are doing this. Here's how many millions of people are doing this. Here's how many downloads are happening. Look at all this lost revenue that we've had. The rulings that stood in the 90s, well, and I'm paraphrasing here as a devil's advocate kind of way. Well, the rules that we set in the 90s, they don't hold true anymore, because now everybody has broadband. So now the potential for downloading is ridiculously more prevalent, and so now we need to really crack down on this. And so, Yuzu, thank you so much for coming to trial. Thanks for showing us and allowing us to have a platform here with high visibility that's going to show all of these different things that are happening in the retro scene. And thank you so much, Yuzu, for doing this. And it's possible that they could even get a settlement, which is lenient if all of this is allowed to come out, right? And that's the danger here. And I believe it's pretty much already set in stone. I think all of this is known. Again, you're going to get your power content creators out there that are tight-lipped with NDAs that aren't going to say a word about this. They haven't said a word about 5G Switch. They haven't said a word about anything meaningful. All they're talking about is, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker double packs, and all this classic trash that they're just throwing out there to make you click on their stuff because they literally have nothing else to talk about, or they're not allowed to talk about anything else, right? So here, you're going to get it straight from me. This is what's going on. Watch Yuzu. Watch it close. It will not stop with Yuzu. You're already seeing Citra now. What's next? What's that? Just ask yourself, what's next, right? So here, it's plain and simple. Yuzu will be made an example, but it won't just be isolated. It will be brought to the table in trial as an example, and they're going to redraw the rules around what's happening in the retro community, commingled with our increased ability now with broadband technology, which was not available in the mid to late 90s, right? Let's not split hairs. Nobody had gigabit fiber connections in the 90s unless you were working for the government. Okay, so now with all of that combined, you're going to see the fiercest crackdown in preservation, emulation that you've ever seen, and it's going to come fast. And it might even come silently. Again, you're going to have a lot of this stuff that's wrapped in NDAs, and your power content creators that you look to for news, and sometimes they release videos daily, they won't touch this with a 100-foot pole. I guarantee you they will not touch it with a 100-foot pole. And if they even glance at it, they'll divert immediately, or you'll see jump cuts, and they'll edit that out because they don't want their guests talking about it either. It's laughable, it's comical. We'll see what happens here on this channel, right? We'll see what happens. But honestly, watch Yuzu, watch it close. I feel like the guy in The Thing, watch him close. He was, kind of lying because he was the alien, right? But anyway, that's what's going down, and just watch. And I should say, call to action. Be prepared, right? Because the day will come when you go out there and you start looking, oh, wow, this isn't available anymore. That file's not available anymore. Where'd this repository go? Where'd that repository go? Oh, server error. What does that mean? And I can't do that. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming quick. It's coming real soon. It's going to come right on the heels of this. So if it's not Yuzu in and of itself that brings it all down, there will be other examples made. I'll leave it at that. Again, thanks for tuning in. This is Retro Renovo. Have a good one.